So welcome to our very first training video. Hopefully this will be a big series of videos and you guys get some information from it. I wanted to put these videos together because I know a lot of people that are either new to Macintosh, new to just switched from Windows to Mac, and they open up their computer for the very first time and they really don't know where to go. So these lessons hopefully will teach you some of the basics, and this lesson is going to be completely based around, oh, I got a little install here, so we're going to do that. I shouldn't hit install. I should have hit later, just so you know, so I'm going to cancel that. So basically around you getting some foundations and learning how to move around your machine. Later on we'll get into some specifics to different applications, including photos and iMovie and mail and things like that. But for now we're going to focus on this screen, because this is the screen here, right here, that you guys will jump to the moment that you turn on your computer. And you'll see an icon in the top right hand corner for me called Untitled, and that's because I have an actual USB stick in the side of my computer. So you may not have that, and if you don't, that's fine. If you do, that's excellent as well. Just so you know, if you don't want this, if you click on it, I'm going to go down here first before I click. I'm going to drag my arrow down. You'll see it here is the trash can, and this is pretty standard, a trash can for all the documents that we have. Now, anything that we have plugged into our computer that's a storage device can't be just pulled out of the machine. It has to be what's called ejected. So we're going to do this here, slowly just drag it down, and you'll actually notice that the trash can changes. It looks like now what's called the eject icon. And when we put that on top of there, you'll see it still says trash, and that's kind of scary, but when we let it go, you'll see that this icon now hopefully will disappear. I got two users running, so it may be that the other user is not. Oh, there it goes, which is excellent. Because if you have two users like me, another user could be holding it, which would stop it from ejecting. But we're going to keep coming back here, and we're going to look at this screen. So this main screen here is called the desktop. I want you guys to get some good habits around this. So you'll notice now my desktop has nothing on it, and that is the preferred way of keeping your desktop. Adding icons to your desktop, and you'll learn this later, will actually slow your machine down and will stop it or just hinder your ability to find your files, because it sounds like a good idea, but when this desktop gets crammed full of files and you got 60 files and you don't know what any of them are, and you got icons on top of each other, not very easy to locate anything. So we're going to keep this nice and clean if we can. Okay, you want to have a couple files on here for temporary use, that's great, but try to learn to file them later. So desktop here, primarily clean, hopefully. Down at the bottom, you'll see this bar that runs across the bottom of the screen. Now this bar is called the dock. And the dock are reference files that actually, so if I were to click on here, mail for instance, it would actually go into my computer and find the mail software and open it. So one of the keys here is that this is not all your software. The majority of your software, almost all your software, actually resides in this icon here called the Launchpad. And this Launchpad, when you click it, you'll see all your apps come up. Now you'll see these three little dots here. You may have only one dot, you may have two dots, and it's really in regards to how many pages you have. And you can see I can click on these dots to slide between the pages, which is kind of nice. But you'll notice that I have considerably more icons in here than I do on my dock. So to get rid of this when it's up, you can either click back on the launch pad, or you can click in an empty spot. So I'm going to click on an empty spot, and you'll see that it just disappears. So the key down here is that you want to keep this, again, clean, and have this only showing icons that you use. For instance, I don't use programs like Numbers very often. Because of that, it's not a piece of software that I want actually on my dock. So a couple things I can do. Number one is I can click and hold on it. And when you click and hold, you'll get this menu pop up, and you'll see options, remove from dock. Not going to do that yet. You can right click. So right clicking or secondary clicking on a Mac can be used by default either by clicking with 2 fingers on your trackpad if you have a trackpad, or again clicking on the right hand side of the mouse if that's enabled. So I'm going to right click, you'll actually see same options come up, right? Remove from dock. Or, this is the big one, you can click and drag. So you got to do this fairly quickly, because if you click and hold, you're going to get that little menu pop up. If you tap on it too short, you're going to open the program, and if you want to click and lift, you'll see it says remove. And I want you to remember that word, because it's remove, not delete. And anytime you see a remove, it's you removing a link, not deleting the file. So I hit remove, and it disappears. I come down here, don't want Keynote, click lift, and remove. Okay, come down here, click on Photos, click lift, remove. Okay, now there are going to be a lot of pieces of software that you get over time that you actually want. So you may want on your dock. So we're going to go down here to Launchpad and reverse. So I removed photos, but I actually want it. So from here I can click and drag it. And you actually see that when I get down to the dock, you get this little space, and that's important. You don't want to put it on an icon, you want to put it in that little space. Because if you put it on an icon, it's going to try to open this with this, which isn't what we want to do. We want to place it. So this is nice because we can move it around and find that piece of space that we actually want the software to live in. I'm going to actually put it right in the center because it's a piece of software I use a lot, so I'll put it right there. You're going to notice it drops and slides back because it's not leaving here, it's referencing it, which is good. So perfect, I got that the way I want. And you can put whatever you want down here. Now don't make it too crazy, just have the files that you're using. You'll also notice down here, I don't know if you can see this, my little QuickTime icon, which is the one that's recording the screen right now, has a little dot, and I have this other piece of software here. I'm actually going to close that, so I can close that by holding. You'll see quit. You'll see that it disappears, which is good, because the dot means that that software is running. So if I stop using QuickTime, this icon disappears. And you'll notice these ones never do. But this one has a dot telling me that it's running, which is important for you to see this. If I were to come here and open up, let's say, I don't know, Calendar, or let's say Safari, you'll see Safari gets a dot underneath it. Okay, the dot tells me it's running. And that's important because first thing, and we're going to go now kind of back up to this side, is up here is something called the menu bar. And you'll see my menu bar now says Safari, because I have Safari running, and the dot says that it's running. Now if I click back here on the desktop, you'll see right behind the icon, Safari still looks like it's running, dot says it's running, but this says Finder, and that's because Finder is now the active piece of software. And just so you know, Finder will always have a dot because it can't be shut down. Okay, so that's okay. Now I come here and I hit the red because I figured the red is what closes the software. So once I hit that, close. Is it closed? Well, it still says Safari here, so probably not. And if you look down here at the Safari icon, black dot. So is it closed? No. We've closed the Safari window, but we haven't closed the actual Safari application. So to close it, we can, again, hold. You'll see it quit. Or when we click on Safari and Safari becomes active by what you see in the menu bar, we can click on Safari and go down to quit Safari. So when we click on that, you'll see Safari shuts down, the dot disappears. But because this was an app that I had in the dock, it doesn't leave the dock. Okay, so that's important. You'll also see over here that there's this downloads and trash, and there's this little tiny line here. Now this little line is kind of a divider line. Anything on this side of it has to be an application, which we've seen how we can move files to it. But anything on the other side has to be, well, it really has to be anything that's not an application. So if I came into my Finder, which is where I find all my files, you can see that I can come in here and look around and be like, hey, I would like my downloads. I would like to have access to all my downloads. I would like to have access to my documents folder. So I can literally just take that, and again, you're waiting for that space. You can see the space shows up. The space shows up over here. It does nothing, right? Here's that space. So I go drag, and what it does is it places a link back to the documents folder. Now this is showing what's in the documents folder, and you'll see it lifts up and goes down, right? Which is kind of cool. You can also click and hold on this. Sorry, right click on this, and you'll get a option panel that comes up. So an option panel there to show how this is being displayed. And if you so choose you don't want this there, again, you can just drag it off and you'll get a remove, and it disappears. No harm, no foul, which is great. Back up to the top here, this is what's called the menu bar. And if you were to split the menu bar in half, this side would be software driven. So I just want you guys to go around and play in there and take a look. And again, this all depends on what software you have open. So this is the Finder because that's all I have open. If I were to click on Safari, this would say Safari, and these would be Safari menus. So go in there and look around. On the other side here, you're going to have things like your computer, things to access on your computer. So this one here is going to be your Wi-Fi. This one here beside it will be if you have things like external Apple TVs that you can connect to. Here will be your battery, and this will be again only for those of us that are on MacBooks. But this will tell you how much time possibly is left or what's using your power, etc. Clock. Hope you know what a clock is. Tells the time. If it's wrong, there are some settings that you can do that we can look into later. This is going to be the actual user file that's logged in. This guy here is something called, and you'll see it, Spotlight, and we'll have a session strictly based around Spotlight. I'm going to click on that to get rid of it. Next one over here is Siri. So if you don't see a Siri icon, you may have an older Mac computer, or you may not have updated. So you want to check to make sure you've updated first by going to the Apple icon. You'll see something that says About This Mac. When you click on that, you'll see here what operating system you have. So Mac OS Sierra. Now I'm running a beta build, but version 10.12 point something is what you need to have Sierra here. So we're just going to close that. But that's a big one, and we'll talk about Sierra. We'll talk about Siri later. Last one here is your notifications, and if you click on that, you'll get your notification bar, which will tell you if you have any notifications come up on your computer, as well as the Today mode. And we'll go into those a bit later as well. But this is the first little session. I hope you guys get something out of it. Again, we have the desktop, which is the main screen here, which again, I hope you don't put too much things on. Unless they're temporary and you're kind of just using them, then you're going to file them or delete them later. We have our dock, which I hope you guys customize. And then we have our actual menu bar. And again, the menu bar is split into two. Left-hand side will be software related. Right-hand side will be system related. So these are good foundations for you to learn. When you're done, you're going to click on the Apple. This is the big one I want you to see. And you're going to, when you're finished your computer, you know, a lot of times you're going to put it to sleep, you're going to restart it or shut down. Now, restart or shut down are important because I'm going to click this real fast. If you shut down, you'll get, oh, I can't do it. You'll get, and I want you to read it on your computer because I can't get mine to come up. You get a screen that says, would you like to shut down? Now, a lot of times there's going to be a little box with a little check mark. And the check mark says, would you like to restart all the apps that you have currently open? Now that is defaulted to on. Most of the time we don't want that. So you're going to take it off so your computer has a good chance to shut all its software down and restart clean the next time around. But watch that. If you take away one thing, and a lot of us when we're learning a computer try to go way too fast, slow down. When screens come up on the screen, little pop-ups happen, little error messages happen, take the time and read them. They're not there for no reason at all. They're there because it's trying to explain what's happening or trying to explain what we need to do next or asking us to make a decision. So we need to make sure that we are slow, patient, patient's a big one, and that we read all these screens. All right, guys, this was lesson 1, and we've talked about, like I said, the desktop, the dock, and the menu bar a little bit, and we'll have the next lesson up shortly. Talk to you guys later.